Yes, I think we can get started. So, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone who are joining us from different parts of the world today. First of all, thank you so much for showing interest and signing up to this event. And I'm pretty sure you'll get to know a lot of things, interesting things about local automation. Quick round of introduction. I'm Rajesh Chilka, working as a product manager for local automation at BrowserStack. I've been associated with BrowserStack for 5+ years now and been a QA practitioner myself. And joining alongside with me today in the panel is Shyam, who is the principal product manager at BrowserStack. Shyam, do you want to introduce yourself quickly to the audience?
Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. I am the lead product manager here for the low code automation product. I have been working on this product for the last 1 year plus.
Awesome. Thank you, Shyam. Thanks for the introduction. Before we delve into it further, a few housekeeping items to keep in mind. This session would run for 60 minutes and all the participants will be muted to avoid any interruptions during the course of the webinar. In case you have any questions, you can add those in the Zoom Q&A window. We'll have a dedicated slot towards the end for 15 minutes to answer all of your queries. And this session will be recorded and the recording will be made available to you post this event. So the agenda for today is Shyam and I will be walking you through the overview of local automation. Why is it important? What are the key challenges that are faced in today's world of testing? And how does BrowserStack's local automation help you solve those challenges and move from manual to automation quickly? We'll also give you a product demo and share some of the best practices and guidelines, and followed by the Q&A section towards the end. So we'll quickly run through a couple of poll questions to understand the current context of your testing methods and the type of organizations you're coming from. Can we have the poll question on the screen, please? Can we have the second poll question on the screen? All right, there ends the poll. I'll quickly pass on over to Shyam. Shyam, over to you.
Thank you, Rajesh. We'll start with why should one even consider low code testing, right? Traditional script-based test automation is not easy. It has automation challenges like creating an internal test framework, maintaining a test execution infrastructure, weeks or months of ramp-up time required to get started, and then you have to start realizing ROI months after because you will need sufficient test cases to be in place, which might take a few months. 3, QA skilled in test frameworks are scarce and in high demand, right? Low-code automation can solve these test problems as it requires much less effort and faster velocity. We will demonstrate this during the demo. Now, I would like you to think about something. Do you relate to any of the below problems? 1, manual regression, smoke, and sanity testing are delaying your sprint releases. You have product experts like business analysts, end users, product managers, or support members who do not code but would like to contribute to testing. Or your automation test coverage is low and require a long time to create test scripts and increase coverage. Or the automation tests are flaky and require high effort to maintain them and ensure stability. If you face any of these problems, then you should definitely consider and evaluate low-code automation. Now, let us see BrowserStack's Low Code Automation. BrowserStack's a desktop app can be downloaded and installed with a single click. It is not a tool, but rather a complete test platform. You can create end-to-end UI test journeys with zero training, create test suites within a few seconds, trigger test builds with a single click or through CI on BrowserStack's cloud infrastructure. You can also schedule builds to be triggered on a fixed interval. You can test across all major browsers, including mobile browsers. Troubleshoot issues easily with access to video recording, screenshots, console, and network logs. With unlimited users, right from the base plan, you can add your developers and other persona to collaborate easily on the platform. You can get build reports and email notification of build status. We also plan to add accessibility testing and visual testing. So it is not a simple test recorder tool, but a complete test platform that supports test creation, execution, troubleshooting, reporting, and even different types of testing. So through low-code automation, you can create tests much faster and within sprint timelines, execute tests across all major browsers and real mobile device browsers without the hassle of setting up, maintaining, and upgrading test infrastructure, reduce test maintenance drastically, and achieve automation with existing team members without hiring any new automation engineers in addition. Some of the unique features are the zero training required so that testers can be productive from day one. Simplify complex validations into easy, simple visual validations. Readable test steps that even business persona can understand. Video recording of test executions that lets you troubleshoot issues easily. And out-of-the-box test execution infrastructure. And last, the AI capabilities that are weaved into test creation and execution. For example, we have AI-based self-healing, test data generation, test generation from test cases, and many more, which are all in experimental stage right now, and we will be rolling them out very soon. Now let's go into the product demo. We'll record a test on calendly.com. It's a tool used to schedule meetings with anyone outside your company. We will record a new event creation user journey. We will start by selecting a screen size. So in this case, I'm going to select 1440 by 900. So select a screen resolution, which can be used by all the testers in my team, right? As I start recording, you will see a new Chrome session gets launched. The recorder is on the right side. As I start performing the actions, you can see all the steps get recorded in simple English. Now, even actions like hover get recorded without any additional steps. Even passwords are identified automatically and they are masked from public view in the initial. You can even do enter key and even all the key presses also get captured. Let us use an element presence validation here to identify that this invite user button is present, right? Let's also do a text validation, which is just a very simple click on the URL which we want to validate. Let's say I go and create a new event type here. I'll now use a visual validation, which will let me validate that this particular container with 4 different options and all the text within them are present, right? So I just click on visual validation. So if you are not able to select the exact container, you can use up arrow key and down arrow keys to select the accurate container you want. And once you select, you click on the enter key to take a screenshot. Typically, we recommend you to take screenshots of smaller elements so that you can have a proper result based on that. We discourage everyone from taking full page screenshots because in that case, any minor change on the page could trigger a false failure for that step, right? Now let's do a one-on-one event. I'll give an event name, continue. So the event is now created, right? Now let's click on the share button and validate that it is created, right? Now I want to ensure that the copy link button is present on this page. So I'm going to do element presence and then click on copy link. So the difference between an element presence and a visual validation is that element presence just is going to check for that a button is present over here. Whereas visual validation will look at the text, color, size of the button and all those things, right? So that's the difference between an element presence and a visual validation. And visual validation, you can use it on containers so that multiple components can be validated in a single go. So we can also add API steps in between in a test. Let me show how to do a API step here, right? So API steps, you can use them for test setup, test teardowns, or validate anything that is beyond the UI, right? So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply validate that the logged in user details are showing up correctly as per the API, right? You can use any kind of requests, get, post, all kind of requests are supported. Here I'm going to use a bearer token based authentication. Once you have that, click on send. You can see that the call got made successfully. I can validate the status code if I want to. I can validate the different headers. I can also validate the body, right? Now in this case, I'm going to validate the body. So you can scroll and see that the whole JSON response is available here. I'll just say, the email is correct or not, right? So you can see that this validation is created now. Now I'm going to save and run this test. Let's give a name. So in this, you can see that I have created a 20 plus step test in about 3 to 4 minutes, right? And I needed to use only 2 buttons for most of the steps. So this is what we meant by zero training and very easy to use without any training. And you can become productive from day 1 onwards, right? So you can see the test is getting executed. And for each step of the test, we capture the screenshots so that you can at a later point of time, if you want to check what happened at a particular step, you can go and do that. This local run is just to ensure that the test created is behaving as you expected or not, right? So now visual validation is happening. Visual validation uses BrowserStack's per se visual testing tool in the backend. So any improvement that we make to per se are available on this low code automation product automatically for anyone who uses that product. So now you can see all the steps passed. If I want to check what happened at a particular step, I can expand and see the screenshot. I can click on it and view the screenshots. You can, if there were any failures, you will get a toggle so that you can see only the failed steps. Now that this is complete, let's go back to the test listing. We'll go to test suits and create a new test suit, right? I'll create a test suit. I'll call it Calendly regression suit. Let me select some tests. I'll select the last test that we just created now. So the tests which we add into a test suite, they execute on BrowserStack's cloud infrastructure, right? I can select multiple browsers so that I record the test once and I can execute it on multiple browsers. I can also select that I want to run it on all weekdays at 2 p.m. let's say, right? And if my test environment is behind a private network or a VPN, you can set up BrowserStack local testing and then you can turn this on. And if you have multiple environments on which you want to run the test against, you can give which particular host URL you want to run the tests against. You might have recorded the test even on your dev environment or your local instance, but you can still run the same test on production or pre-production QA environment, any integration testing environment, any environment, right? So now we have saved this test. Let's go back to the test suits. You can see this here. You can see the scheduler is on. It says it has Chrome and 3 other browsers. I'll trigger a run now, right? So you can trigger an on-demand run whenever you want. Let's go to the builds that got triggered. So you can see this is running, but I have created a similar test and run a build before. Let's go and view that build. So you can see the browser versions on which it executed. You can share the build URL with anyone in your team. Even developers can come and view this build. Let's look at one of the build reports, right? You also get an email as soon as the build is completed with the build status and the number of tests that were part of it and their status. So you can see the report is very similar to the one on the local execution, except that you have a video recording also over here, right? So you can share the video recording so that anyone who's interested in troubleshooting the issue or going through the test execution can do that. We have console logs, network logs. The same screenshots are also available over here. So troubleshooting is very easy, right? You can see this visual validation result. You can compare the screenshots. You can have them side by side on top of one another. So both are supported, right? Okay. I hope this demo gives you an idea of how low-code automation can help you make the jump to automation testing with your existing team members itself. Now I'll hand over to Rajesh. In the meantime, we have one more poll question. We would like you to answer this poll question.
All right. Thanks, Sham, for the great demo. It was pretty easy to create tests on local automation. And as easy as it was, there's some of the best practices that we want you to walk through. Uh, we'll talk about two primary aspects. One is the website testability and the test reusability. So in website testability, there are multiple aspects. So when you record tests on websites having CAPTCHAs, Cloudflare, or A/B testing localization implemented, uh, it's a bit challenging. Now, when it comes to CAPTCHAs and Cloudflare, now CAPTCHAs are generally implemented in the websites to distinguish between a human and a bot input. And similar to CAPTCHA, Cloudflare adds like another security layer on top of it, and which is used to prevent DDoS attacks, malicious activities, and spams on the website. Now, again, similar to CAPTCHA, recording tests on websites with Cloudflare enabled often might lead to issues because it gets detected as a bot traffic, right? Now, the best recommended solution here is to disable these configurations on your staging environments, right? Uh, Talking about localization and A/B testing. Now, localization and A/B testing are some of the examples of websites that render different content on different regions, countries, based on languages, and even different users, right? So, talking about localization, when you're working on a website that has localization that renders different content on different regions, it would work well on your local runs. But when you trigger it on cloud, based on the nearest region that gets picked up, the content might differ because of the country or region specific code. Right now, there are three different ways to tackle this problem. One is if the website can be accessible through different URLs specific to the country. Let's say, for example, Amazon.in would render content specific to the Indian region. Amazon.co.uk would render specific to the UK region. So if your websites can be accessed with a different URL specific to the region or country, we recommend you to start recording with that URL itself. Second option is if your website has the option to set geographic region or country, you can start recording and appropriately set the country and proceed further with the recording. And lastly, you can also make use of the custom actions JavaScript step, which is a powerful feature, and it enables you to unblock most of the custom scenarios, custom actions, validations that you want to perform on top of the low-code recorder, right? Uh, Coming to A/B testing, again, this is another example of a website that can hamper the execution of your tests if not handled properly. Now, A/B testing websites are generally implemented to A/B testing websites basically are generally those that render different content specific to different users, right? And the main objective is to identify which variant of the page yields better results in terms of a predefined metric, uh, conversion rate, engagement, user engagement, etc. And often these variations are served on the application cookies. Again, the solution here is to either disable the A/B testing on your websites if that is feasible. But if you want to automate the flows of the web pages that have this A/B testing enabled, you can make use of the custom actions step that will allow you to set appropriate cookies and local storage values in your recorder. Okay. Lastly, talking about the website HTML attributes. Now, a good automatable website is one that has like meaningful attributes and maintains consistent behavior across different environments and platforms. Now, when I say meaningful attributes, generally means the elements on the page are easily and uniquely identifiable every time, like with a similar set of attributes. But often that is not how the websites are developed in the first place, now, which leads to modifying locator values, timeout values in traditional script-based automation, right? That's where BrowserStack Low Code Automation has an advantage. We have a robust element selection algorithm in place, which takes care for most of the part. So during recording of whatever elements you're interacting with, we try to capture as many attributes. And during execution, we make use of these attributes and identify the element uniquely. And this algorithm is designed to find the same element even when the attributes keep on changing over the course of time. Now, talking about the test reusability, we'll demonstrate some of the key features, modules, data-driven testing, and variables. Talking about modules, often there are a lot of tests that share like a common workflow, common set of steps. A classic example is your login steps to the website. Now, these would be typically common for most of your test cases. So you can make use of modules feature that will help you to reuse these steps across multiple tests. I'll quickly demonstrate how. So just close the chat window. Yeah. So let's say I go ahead and edit this test. So this is a similar test that Sham had created. And here we had multiple steps to log into the website. So when you hover on the step, you'll see a checkbox that you can click. So these are the steps that are used to log into the website. So I'll quickly select those and create a module out of it. So the module is created. Now, whichever tests reuse the same set of steps, you can import this module in those tests. So I'll quickly save this test and run it. So this should replay the entire test again. Okay. In the interest of time, I'll just quit this and show you how you can import a module. So we created a module in this test. Now let's say I want to record a new test and import that created module. So you can see an option here on the recorder, which says import a module. I'll quickly click those, and this is the module that we had created earlier. So without recording all the steps again, we have just imported a module that can be reused in any number of tests that you want. And I can go ahead and save this and run the test again. Right. So that's how easy it was to create a module. Now we'll see how we can make use of variables and data set to run a single test against different combinations, right? So I'll exit this for the moment. So this is a data set section wherein you can upload your CSV files containing different row entries. Right? So we have uploaded a CSV file that contains different event names for the Calendly website. So we'll be linking this data set to a test and running that test against these three combinations. So I'll show you how that can be achieved. Yes, so we can go ahead and edit the same test. So let's say here, instead of entering a static data every time, I want to make use of the data set. So I'll just go ahead and click on the plus icon. I'll do an import a value from data set. So this was the data set that we want to use. So I'll click link. And we want to use the event name column from the data set. So when I run this test on as part of a test suite, this test would get triggered for all the three combinations that we have uploaded. So I'll again save this test and run it. So when you run it locally, we run it against the first row entry. But when you trigger it as a part of a test suite, it gets triggered against all the combinations that are present in the CSV file. So we have triggered a build earlier. In interest of time, I'll quickly show you that build. So this was the build that we had triggered. So this was a single test that ran across all the three combinations that were present in the CSV file. So as you can see, the first test ran for the first row entry in the CSV file. The second test ran for the second row, and the third test ran for the third row. So this way you can upload a CSV file which contains multiple rows, and you can reuse a single test to be able to run against multiple different combinations by making use of this state dataset feature. So we'll quickly talk about how you can make use of variables. Variables is again a very important feature when it comes to reusing your static text inside the website. I'll quickly show you how. Yeah, so let me go ahead and edit this. So here we are linked a data set. Now, instead of a data set, let's say we had a static name, which was 1 on 1. Now this value has to be reused, let's say in the further steps in the test. So all I can do is I can just simply convert it to a variable called as event name. When I convert this into a variable, I can make use of this variable in any of my further steps, which includes a text validation or a type input type. So you can click on the plus icon and import the variable that you have just created. So variables and test dataset modules are extremely useful when it comes to reusing set of steps or reusing a single input value in the entire test, right? So that was about the best practices from the website testability and test reusability standpoint. So we'll quickly go through the Q&A and answer the questions from the chat. The first question is there a way to collaborate between the team inside the platform? Sham, do you want to take it?
Yeah. So from a collaboration perspective, we have anyone can be added to the product. The users are unlimited. And second, you can share the build URLs with anyone. For any review or any kind of commenting kind of functionality, we don't have it today, but we do have it on our roadmap.
Right. The second question is about also how is the presence verification made? Is it based on the image or any other parameter or properties? So I'll answer this. So when you're adding an element presence verification in the recorder panel, it captures the element that you have selected. It doesn't capture the image. It doesn't verify the image during the execution. Image verification or image comparison is done using the visual validation feature. So element presence just checks whether the element that you have selected is present or not when it's executed. Can we run the test suite in mobile devices? Yes, so we have mobile browser testing as well, which is in progress right now, and it should be made available soon within next few weeks.
I'll answer the part where it says that it looks slow both loading and executing tests. See, one thing is we right now are on a Zoom webinar with screen sharing and recording enabled, which takes up a lot of the CPU and memory resources. Without Zoom running, these are usually much faster, both the test recording as well as the executing of the executing tests.
I think we're getting good feedback also on the product. We'll try to answer the questions. Is it possible to call arbitrary JS or Python step? Yeah, Sham, you wanted to go ahead.
Yeah, so we do have JavaScript steps. You can perform any custom action, create custom variables, or do custom validations using them. So it would be a step in itself, similar to the API step which I demonstrated. All you need to do is just type in the script what you want to execute on the browser and as a step, and that will be executed. That step can take input values from the previous step and the variables which are created as part of the previous steps in the test. And it can also return variables and or validation results as part of a return result from that step.
Yep, I can even demonstrate that for the moment.
Yes.
So yeah, when you click on this icon, you'll see a menu which opens. You can even add an API like Sham demonstrated. You can even add a custom actions in JavaScript. So when you click here, you'll see 3 different tabs. So here you can do a custom action. You can set a cookie value as well, right? In case you want to do a custom validation, like someone asked whether can we validate a document title. So you can just say document.title dot includes whatever the title has, let's say appointment. So you can execute this And whenever the script gets executed, it will check against the document title and verify this step. So that's how easy you can make use of JavaScript snippet and add as many custom actions or validations that you want.
Uh, One question I see is how does it handle iframes and shadow DOM? So we do handle iframes and shadow DOM. Shadow DOMs, most of the shadow DOMs are open shadow DOMs. If there is any closed shadow DOM, then there is no tool in the market, or even script-based automation cannot handle those closed shadow DOMs. So other than closed shadow DOMs, both iframes and shadow DOMs are handled by this. So you can we also have CSS selector and export selector support, which also supports iframe and shadow DOM. So both on the recording and the custom selectors support iframe and shadow DOMs.
I'm gonna ask, can we use random string for fill fields, right? So I'll quickly show that. So this was a type step where we wanted to input a value. For here, we had earlier value called as one-on-one, which is the event name. Now, in case I want to input a random generated string, I can go ahead, I can add a function. So we give 4 different types of functions that you can generate. You can generate random alphabets of whatever length you want. You can generate numbers, you can generate emails, just specify a domain, and it will generate a email with appropriate domain. And you can even generate the passwords out of the box. So you can make use of functions and create randomly generated alphabets, numbers, emails, and passwords.
Rajesh, there is one question from Hemant who's asking, how do we capture data from UI and store it in a variable and then reuse the variable in further steps? If you
Awesome.
show that.
Yep. So yep, this was the variable that this was the event name that we were using to create an event on Calendly. So we'll convert. So we had converted this into a variable earlier. So let me just convert it. Event name where, okay, and just do a save. Now I've created a variable that has a value one-on-one. Now let's say I want to validate something on the screen. Let's say this screen, and instead of validating against this static text, I want to make use of the variable that I had created. So I can just go ahead and import a variable here. So instead of validating against static text, you can create variables and just import the variables to in the text validation or even input steps for that matter.
So there are multiple questions on native mobile application support. So we are going to support mobile browsers, real mobile browsers. Starting next week, we will be supporting emulated browsers, and before end of March, you will have real mobile device browsers. On the mobile app part, BrowserStack usually starts with a desktop browser product and then follows with the mobile app, which is the case you can see in Live, which was followed with App Live. We had Percy followed by App Percy. We have accessibility followed by app accessibility. So once we complete this and have enough learning from the desktop browsers low code automation, we would be supporting mobile apps after that. We will take these learnings, and many of the functionalities which we have built here are readily usable in the next for the mobile apps also.
Is it possible to run tests scheduled and compare results to a previous test run? So schedule, you can make use of the scheduler. So when you are creating a test suite, you can add a scheduler. Screen is open. I'll quickly show how. So when you create a test suite, you'll see an option to schedule a test. Let's say I give this a name. Let's say I add any test. Yep, let's say I add a test and configure browser, and then you'll see an option of schedule. So you can select as many days of the week and provide a specific time that you want to run at. So this test suite will get triggered appropriately during that time intervals.
There is a question, is there an enterprise option available? Yes, we do have an enterprise option available. Then there is another question which is from Asaf Salim. Can a test run from a midpoint when troubleshooting? Yes. During troubleshooting, you can auto execute or jump to any test in between, any step in between. Is it easy to fix a step? Yes, all you need to do is jump, do execute till here on any particular step. It will auto execute on the browser to that step, and then you can make any changes that you want at that time, at that position. What's the third part is, what's the maximum test time per test recommended? So what we recommend is you ensure it is a end-to-end journey, a single journey which is meaningful and can be performed by users on the platform, on the product. If you have like unrelated journeys as part of a single test, then it's difficult to figure out what failed when that particular test fails, right? So you can create end-to-end journeys as long as those journeys are meaningful. It's okay. They can be 10 steps or 30 or 40 steps. That shouldn't matter. Is there any control on CSS export selectors used by tests? So you can override and provide your own CSS or export selectors for each step. So there is control over it, yes. Does it support ASP.NET Framework apart from JavaScript? If you are asking about the custom action step where we were able to enter JavaScript code, there it is only JavaScript. But as an application, as a web application, anything which is HTML and CSS, we do support those.
There are a few questions around the native mobile application testing. So yep, currently local automation supports web-based applications, but we do also have mobile application support in our roadmap, and it should be started soon.
Can we export the test results to an external dashboard? We are working on it. It's on our roadmap. We don't have it at the moment, but we do want to build these integrations with other products. There is a question, can you show us an example of the AI capability? Give me a second, I'll just bring that up. Let me share my screen. So the AI steps are in, what do I say, in an experimental state right now. So I'll give you two kinds of examples over here. One is where I can give a specific instruction and it will perform it. For example, I'll say click on stay signed out in this case. Okay, so it's not enabled on this particular account. Rajesh, proceed with the questions. I'll just switch to an account which has this.
Sure. More on the mobile app testing. Is visual comparison has configurable threshold similarity? So I'm assuming you're asking about if we can configure any kind of thresholds on the visual validation feature. Currently, no. We do use Percy in the backend when it comes to comparing two screenshots, the recorded and the executed ones. And Percy has a very strong diffinging that eliminates all the noise from the images and appropriately gives a difference in the images if there is any. So currently we do not have that configuration to, we do not provide the configuration to modify these thresholds, but we do have it in a pipeline to support these as well. Mobile native apps, we answered. There's a question around data-driven testing, I guess. You mentioned being able to set up variations of tests using variables. Let's say I need to run 10 different combos of my process. Can I run all of those at once, or will it only work one at a time? So yes, you can run all those at once. So you can create a CSV file, upload it to the test dataset, and link the dataset to the whatever test you want to link it to, right? And as part of the test code, whenever this test gets executed, it will run against all the scenarios, all the rows that are present in the CSV file. So yes, you can achieve that as well. Can you arrange one more webinar to elaborate more about this tool? Sure.
Just let me demonstrate that part.
Sure, go ahead, Sham.
So in this case, I am going to show one part, which is, let's say I want to stay signed out. I'm going to say, click on stay signed out. This is in giving it a specific instruction to perform. So you can see that it recorded click on stay signed out button, right? It takes time only during the recording part. The AI figures, it looks at the whole page and then takes time. But during execution, it's, like how we saw in the previous case, right? Now I'm going to give it a more, high level statement, functional statement rather than a specific instruction. In this case, it will be, so I'm just saying, it doesn't know I am on on a search engine or anything as such, right? It's just any random page that I open. I'm saying get the stock price of Apple in this one, right? So it's not a single step. It's a multi-step process for even a human being to do. Let's see how AI figures this out, right? So it's typed in Apple stock price, not like stock price of Apple. So it kind of figured out a different terminology. Okay. This time it failed. Let me try it once again. In this, we are also working on copying and pasting a test case itself from an test case management or some Excel sheet, and then it will execute those, convert them into a low code test, right? That is also something which we are working on. So it figured out that it needed to click on Google search button. And it also figured out in this page where is the stock price of Apple, and also created a variable called Apple stock price and then filled it into that, right? So you can see that these values are, dynamic value that is captured, and then 172.48 was the value when it captured it. So this is one example. So we are working on refining it, and once it, we will be kind of opening it on an experimental basis very soon. In fact, even today, If you turn on an account setting called opt into AI features, you would be able to see this functionality. We also have one more functionality, which I can probably show, that is, instead of this text value, let's say I want to generate, any kind of random value. I can give a prompt and then generate a random value, which is more useful in terms of form filling, because if you have forms where you need to fill a random address or a zip code or something which is, and you don't really care about the exact value, or you want a different value every time, you can use this. For example, let's say in a sign up scenario, I want to generate a realistic email ID. We also have that random function which also generates random email IDs. But in this case, let's say I give generate a random email ID with Indian name and gmail.com domain. You can be as descriptive as you want to, right? So rahul123@gmail.com, and it would generate a different value each time the test executes. So you don't have to go and do any test data cleanup as part of test executions between two different builds.
There's a question around inbuilt weights. Do you have inbuilt weights for animations and Angular web element renderings? Yes. So each step today has a intelligent timeout, and whenever the test gets executed, we have certain actionability checks that we do on the element before actually performing the action. So whenever the test gets executed, we check for the element's presence, visibility, whether the element is stable or not, perform all those actionability checks until the timeout has reached, and then proceed further with the execution. So yes, we do do that intelligently during the execution.
So there is a question from Asaf. We perform many payment tests and PayPal opens a pop-up, then closes and returns to the site for validation. Do we handle this, or is it considered a separate tab? So this opens up as part of the natural workflow. It's not like a user is going and clicking on a new tab and then opening it. So this is a scenario which we have automated multiple times already. So these are scenarios which, like where a pop-up payment opens, can be automated today. We don't consider it as a separate tab opening by the user or jumping between different tabs. If it is happening, if you are opening a link by clicking on a link present on the page and then that opens a separate tab, the recorder will recognize that and automatically move to that tab, right? So that's not something which we, that is something which we do record, and that's very much feasible. What we do not support today is you going and manually opening a new tab and then you manually clicking between two different tabs and switching between them. That's what we don't support today. How much flakiness can be expected when running the low-code automation via BrowserStack repeatedly? So flakiness is one of the core problems of script-based automation, which we wanted to specifically target and avoid in this low-code automation. So we have multiple levels of multiple logic present within our algorithm, which takes care of that. We look at not just a single element and its selector. We look at the whole page, the page structure, what are the surrounding elements, what are the parent elements. We look at a lot more information about the element and then capture those details as well. So we have multiple fallback methods, so that if the page changes slightly or the element changes slightly, there are some attributes which change or the location changes, we will be still able to find that element. We are also building AI-based self-healing to the test, so that even if this rules-based, algorithm-based one cannot find that element, similar to the demonstration that I did on the page just now for using the AI capabilities, as long as you can figure out from the step description what is the element that needed to be captured, that need to be acted upon, it will find that element and act upon. So the flakiness is way less compared to any script-based typical automation. And I wouldn't even call it flakiness. Basically, the step will fail only if the element has changed drastically from the recorded state or from the previous state it was in. So that's the, it's the effort required to address flakiness is way lower, and we constantly work on reducing that.
Someone asks, is it possible to test the same scripts in different environments? Yes. So it's possible through test suites. I can show you how, and then we can also proceed further with the webinar. So this was a test suite that I've created, which contains tests that has to be run on multiple environments. So here you can see a configuration called as host URL. Let's say you had a test that got recorded on a dev environment like dev.browserstack.com. But in case you want to run this suite on a staging environment, so what you can do, you can simply specify the staging environment host URL, and this entire test suite, whatever tests are present inside this suite, would get triggered and started with this URL itself. Right. So you can make use of this host URL and record a single test, but run it on multiple different environments.
There is a question from Ganesh Babu. Let's say I download the tool and recorded the test from my local laptop. Do we need to download the tool on a on-premise Windows server where we want to run the tests? So the test recording happens on your local system, but the test execution, which happens as part of the test suites and the build, they are done on BrowserStack's cloud infrastructure. So you don't really need to download anything to your servers or maintain any test execution infrastructure. We just have 2 more minutes to go. So we'll take just one more question, maybe. Is it possible to have parallel execution for all of the tests in the test suite? Yes, it is possible to have parallel execution. As part of the subscription plans that you get, you will get X number of parallels as part of it, and then all the tests which are part of the test suite will execute in parallel based on the number of parallels we are present in that plan.